Many sole proprietors have a good idea of how much they've had in sales for any given period of time. In larger organizations, individuals may not be aware of it, but managers and certainly management should have at least a rough idea about how much we have sold as well. It's pretty safe to assume, though, that the average business owner does not know at any given moment how much in sales tax liabilities we owe. After all, sales tax is basically a pass through. It does not really affect us or our business. We simply collect from the customer and pass it through and pay it to the taxing authorities. We are just the middleman, really. But when it comes time to pay our tax liabilities, which could be quarterly, monthly, or on rare occasion even annually, we do need to be able to know that number and know what precisely and accurately our liabilities are. QuickBooks provides two fast reports that we can access to gain this information. If we activate the vendors menu at the top of the screen and come to sales tax, we see a flyout menu that has the two reports listed for us. They are the sales tax liability report and the sales tax revenue summary. The sales tax liability report is fairly detailed. We can see that it tells us not only certain jurisdictions, but also the specific items, and then the total sales, the non-taxable and taxable sales for each, as well as the tax rate, tax collected, and the sales tax payable. If all of that is a bit too much, we can simply close this report, move back up to the vendor menu, back down to sales tax, and choose a report that's a little bit easier on the eyes, and that is the sales tax revenue summary. This simplifies everything and just shows us which amounts we owe. These reports, like any other reports in QuickBooks, can be printed, emailed, or even exported to Excel for further manipulation. We do not need to produce these reports, though. They're just for informational purposes. When it comes down to it, the only thing we need to do, as they say, is die and pay taxes. In this case, we're going to go ahead and pay our taxes. We can do that by again activating the vendors menu and choosing sales tax. But this time, we're going to choose to pay our sales tax. Since we'll be making a payment, QuickBooks wants to know what account we should be taking the payment from. This could be any number of bank accounts that we have available or credit cards. We then need to make sure that our check date is correct, but we also need to make sure that we show sales tax through the correct date as well. If everything's on time, this is probably going to be either quarterly or monthly, but these designations are important to make sure that the calculation and the liability paid is accurate as well. QuickBooks will put in the next sequential check number, which is just fine. Now it's up for us to decide which of the tax liabilities we want to pay. If we want to pay them all, we can simply click or tap the button that says Pay All Tax near the bottom left of the screen. Also, if we need to make any adjustments, we can do that using the Adjust button. Let's say, for example, that East Bayshore has asked that all of the taxes be paid to the nearest dollar. So $12.98 would not be correct. If we click or tap the Adjust button, the screen displays and we can select the appropriate sales tax vendor. If everything is running smoothly, and hopefully it will, all we really need to do is designate, in this case, which of these two liabilities we want to pay. We do that by placing a check mark in the very first column. Once we place the check mark, the amounts from the amount due column will automatically be moved over to the amount paid column. If we want to pay anything other than this amount, we can simply edit this. If we need to pay extra, or if we don't have enough to pay, which is never a good idea, and we have other issues we need to discuss if that's true, but regardless, we can adjust the amount paid in the last column. Eventually, the totals will come down. It also tells us how much money we have in the bank account to make sure there's enough money to pay the tax liability, because trust me, there's nothing worse than bouncing a check to a taxing authority. The only thing left is to move to the bottom left side of the screen. If we want this to be printed at a later time, check the To Be Printed box. That really is all there is to it. There's not a whole lot to paying the liabilities. And assuming everything has been set up correctly, this can actually be the easiest part of the whole process. When finished, we can go ahead and click OK. And because we checked that it was to be printed, it's now waiting to be printed as we would expect. When the time comes, we would simply move to the File menu, come down about 3/4 of the way to Print Forms, then choose that we want to print checks. The checks that we created are here and waiting, and we simply process them as usual. As promised, The actual setup of sales tax categories and sales tax items, and even applying them to the products we sell and the customers to whom we sell, is not difficult. It's assigning the proper tax items to customers to ensure that all of the taxes are collected appropriately that can be challenging depending on how and where we do business. For some, it's sales tax that really scares people who claim they are not accountants or bookkeepers and that they cannot understand financial matters. As the saying goes, anyone can eat an elephant a bite at a time. The best advice we can provide is to simply take it slowly, work diligently, pay attention to detail, and if necessary, don't hesitate to ask for professional assistance in setting up your complex sales tax scenario.